My name is Christina Marie Ayasse, and I was Christina Marie Massaro when I went to Brentwood Schools. Actually, a graduate from Brentwood Schools. My parents and I, my two sisters and I, we moved to Brentwood in, I think it was 1956. My father was looking. We lived in Parkchester, and this was just. I guess we lived there. We lived there quite a long time. We lived in 1555 Odell Street, I think was the last place that we lived. And my dad wanted a home, and he was looking in Levittown, but they didn't have basements. And so Levittown just didn't suit him. So then they took a ride out to Brentwood and bought the High Ranch, I think it was called in those days, in North Brentwood. So I was 10 years old. My other sister was 8, Antoinette, and we called her Tony. And my younger sister she was just a baby then, Marie, and moved to Brentwood then.
Who gave you your name?
Well, my father wanted to name me Marie because that's my mother's name is Marie, and she didn't want a child named Marie. So I guess she I don't know of anyone else in the family that was named Christina. I think she just liked that name. And so I was named Christina Marie. And then the next time my mother was pregnant, again, he wanted to name Marie. And she wouldn't do it again. And so she named my sister as Antoinette. And again, I don't really know anyone else in the family that was Antoinette either. She just liked that name. Mm-hmm. And then when my mother was pregnant the third time, she wanted to name the baby after my father, William, but it was a girl, so she just gave up and it was Marie.
Ever have a nickname?
Christy.
Christy.
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess the kids called you that.
Yeah, well, my sisters. Yeah, my sisters. The family called me that. But in school, usually Chris.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Now,
I think they put that nickname down in my yearbook, though, Christy. But I don't remember people calling me Christy that much.
What about at work?
At work?
Yeah.
Chris.
Okay.
Chris, yeah. Christina.
Now, that was your maiden name. You gave it
Massaro.
Okay, Massaro. Okay.
Right.
And your family situation at the moment?
Well, I'm married. Married since 1968.
And your maiden, and your married name?
Is Ayasse.
Okay.
Right. I met my husband. He came to visit his brother across the street. And he was in the Navy. He had just gotten out of the Navy. He was 21 years old. And he was visiting his brother. And my father was digging a cellar entrance behind the house. And his brother was helping my dad. And in those, everybody worked together on the block because they all moved in the same time. And Ralph wandered over, and my father and Richie had been working all day long. And they were tired by this time. They were using a cement drill to get through the cement. So Ralph came over, 6'3", big, tall Navy man, right? So I'm sitting there in a pair of short shorts, and he takes one look at me, and he's going to show me, I guess, how strong he is with the cement thing. And Richie and my father at this point were pretty tired. So Richie goes in the house to get the beer, I guess, or something, and my father comes by, and as he comes by me, I'm sitting in like a chair, outdoor chair there, right? And he says to me, he says, "Stay there, don't move, let him do the wall." So he goes in the house, and Ralph, he almost killed himself. Then meanwhile, as I said, he was 21 and I was 15, and I don't know why he thought I was older, because I certainly didn't look older. I looked 15, right, or younger even, right? And he asked me out. He wanted to take me to the beach because it was summer. My mother wouldn't let me go unless I brought my sister with me. So my sister Tony, she's 2 years younger than I was. So we go to Jones Beach, right? And we're sitting there, and he starts asking me how old was I, right? Was I 18? Well, my sister starts laughing. She's like rolling in the sand, right? And he kept going down. When he got to 15, he says, "I think we have to go home." He brought us.
Well, there must have been something there.
Yeah, but he came over and he says, "Well, you're too young. I'm not I can't go out with you. You're too young. I'm 21 years old." So I said, "Well, that's your problem. I don't need a friend. I got plenty of friends. Goodbye," right? So I don't know why I don't know what I was doing, right? So he kept asking me out. And of course, all my girlfriends thought he was like this old man going out with me because I really looked, when I say I looked 15, I really did look 15, and he always looked older than he was. So it was kind of.
How many children later now?
Well, I have two. But
Okay.
we did not get married until I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
We kept going out. We would have these big arguments and, whatever. And he would just keep coming back and say, keep telling me that I loved him, even, I didn't know. What did I know, right? And then finally, I was going to school, and of course, we didn't have the money for me to go away, so I went to Suffolk Community for 2 years, and I went to Adelphi, and Ralph was just always there, if my mother, because I didn't even have a car, there was no money. I didn't even have a car, so I was always borrowing my mother's car. And when I think about it, I went, to school back and forth. I don't remember how I got there. Sometimes Ralph would pick me up, and, I had all kinds of.
About Ralph then and now. What about him is still the same?
Well, what about him is still the same is that he always adored me, and he still does. He annoys me. He annoyed me then, and he annoys me now sometimes, but he always adored me. And that was always a big plus.
Lucky girl.
Yeah, it's true.
Tell me about the children. Tell us their names and tell us about each one.
Well, my oldest son, my only son, he's going to be 32, right? And he's married 9 years now. Very nice girl. Her name is Marjorie. They met at college. They're both music teachers. They both went to Crane School of Music. And my daughter is Sharon. She's 25. She's also a music teacher. She also went to Crane. And it's so funny because now I wasn't even in chorus in school. They wouldn't let me in. Not that I didn't want to be in chorus, but they wouldn't let me in. And my two best girlfriends, Carol Snyder and Doreen Polikoff. Doreen, I don't know if you did an interview with Doreen, but I'll have to talk her into doing it. She's Doreen R.O.B.S. She also graduated from Brentwood High School. And I still see Doreen all the time. And Doreen said, "How could your children be music?"
Where did it come from?
From Ralph's family. Yeah. Ralph's. Everyone in Ralph's family, I guess, has some music talent.
Did you know his parents?
Yes.
Is that generation? Is that where it came from?
Yeah. Well, I really from his brother. His parents came from Germany. Mm-hmm. His mother came over here. I think she was only 17. She didn't know anyone. And his father also came over very young. And they had 4 children. And Ralph's older brother is quite a bit older than him. And he was a musician.
In the business?
Yes. He eventually became a music teacher. He had 4 children, and he just didn't, traveling around. He played piano.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And what about your children?
Well, my son plays violin. Mm-hmm. He was trained as classical violinist. and he also plays the bass and the mandolin. And as I said, he's a string teacher, and he also has a band. He's Frog Cafe. As a matter of fact, they have gigs all over the place. They have a gig supposed to be going to Germany for a tour this summer. It's progressive jazz. It's kind of exciting.
Yes,
and my daughter,
a jazz violinist is,
exactly.
I would say unusual,
Yeah.
but it's more common today than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah, right, definitely. Yeah,
And
he's very good. My daughter plays piano and flute.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and she sings.
Any grandchildren yet?
No.
Okay.
No grandchildren yet, but I haven't given up hope. I have, my son has a dog, and they keep dropping the dog off, and I keep telling them, I'd be happy to watch.
Chris, where were you born?
I was born in the Bronx.
And when would that have been, if you don't mind my
In 1946. I think it's pretty easy to figure out anyway.
What part of the Bronx?
Well, as I said, we lived in Parkchester.
Parkchester, you did say that.
Yeah.
What are some of the earliest memories you have?
Well, I went to Catholic school, St. Helena's, in the Bronx. And one of the teachers that at Hemlock Park actually also went there and lived in Parkchester. But this is many, 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 many years ago. That I was there many years ago, and she, of course, is a young teacher now. And we happened to be sitting in the teacher's room, we were talking about this. I said, I had gone to Catholic school. She goes, me too. I went to St. Helens in the Parkchester. And I said, wow, me too. But it was like 100 years before her.
What was your mother's name?
Gildray.
Did you know her parents?
Oh, yeah. Well, not my grandfather. No, he died, I think, maybe I was 2 years old.
Do you know anything about the family history on both sides of the family?
Oh, sure. Yeah, my mother's family, they came from New England, and I know that her father had a very tough life. He his father died, and I guess there was quite a few children, and he was farmed out to someone, that they just couldn't afford, He had a pretty tough life, and then he joined I guess the Merchant Marines, and he was around the world quite a few times, and he came back to Adams, Massachusetts, and met my grandmother's father, and he was very interested in my grandmother, who was quite a handful, I understand. Even in those days, she was difficult, and he was 10 years older than her, and he adored her.
Meaning she was independent thinking.
I guess so. It's not like you were able. Not that she could do anything bad, but she she was independent, so to speak. Yes.
Well, that was at a time when it wasn't
right
appropriate, let's say, for women to act in.
She had a mind of her own. She always did. Right. And my father's parents, I think his mother was born here. They're both Italian. And but his father was born in Italy. And the story goes like this: that my great grandmother was the mistress of some baron in Italy. He was the second son, and she had a few children. And the first son died, which meant then the second son moved up to inherit the property. So she pretty much got a settlement and got put on a ship and came to America. And I think she met the man that she married on the ship, which is, the name was Massaro. And my father never even knew his father's original name. They never spoke of it. Well, my dad was born in 1918, so it was
early part of the last century.
I would say, yeah, sure.
What are the childhood memories of your mom that you carry with you?
Oh, my mother, she was great. She always liked to have fun. She read a lot. She was a stay-at-home mom. She was not into, any kind of woman's lib thing as far as that goes, but she always spoke her mind. And I can remember one time when we were living in Parkchester. I guess my dad said something to her that she just did not agree with, right? And she threw the vacuum across the room, and I remember it exploded. There was dust everywhere, and I think it was because I think this was before we moved to Parkchester. The washing machine. We lived in an apartment, but we had a washing machine. The washing machine broke. My father didn't want to buy a new washing machine because we were going to be moving, right? And she had 3 kids and a baby and no washing machine. I can still remember her. I guess they had to get a new vacuum too. I don't. Maybe my dad fixed it because he could fix anything. I don't know. But she got her washing machine.
And what did besides the stay-at-home mom focus that she had, what did she enjoy doing? You mentioned reading.
Oh, she loved to read. Yeah, she read all the time.
Okay.
All the time. Yeah.
And your dad?
One thing that, do you remember, I don't know if you remember the Kukla, Fran and Ollie show and Miss Ding Dong School?
Sure.
Well, I guess I was like 6 years old when we got our first television. And, of course, Miss Francis from Ding Dong School was on. And my sister-in-law, she would always say, call your mother for the commercial, right? So we would call, Mom, Miss Francis wants to see you. And my mother would be like, I'm not going in there for that idiot. She talks too slow. We're always teasing like that. Always teasing.
And your dad's background?
Oh, my dad, well, he also met my mother very young, too. She was only 13 when they met. His brother introduced her to him, and they ran away and got married when I think she was just 18. That was the beginning of World War II. He was drafted, and they wanted to get married. They wanted to get married before that, but my grandmother did not approve of my father because he was Italian. And when you're from Adams, Massachusetts, you didn't marry Italians. They would live on the other side of the tracks with the Polacks, as my grandmother would say. That's the way it was then. So, my mother ran away and got married. They didn't tell anybody except they told her father. She did tell her father. He loved my father. And he said, don't worry what your mother says. Just do what you want to do. So they got married, and then a letter came in the mail. My mother's brother was 2 years older than her. He eloped, got married, and also to somebody that my grandmother, she really didn't approve of a lot of things. So she was ranting and raving and screaming around the house, how dare he, elope and get married without her approval. And my mother said, oh, as long as you're annoyed now, by the way, I'm also married.
That's a cute
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
What do you remember about your dad? Quality?
Oh, my dad is a wonderful person. My mother she's passed away a few years ago, and he really took care of her so tenderly, always.
How old is your dad right now?
He's 85
God
now.
bless.
Yeah, 85. Yeah.
Now,
He always could fix anything. Very smart.
Brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have 2 sisters.
Okay.
Yes.
You remain close? Or
Very close. I have one sister who lives around the corner from me. That's Tony, Antoinette. She's 2 years younger than I am. Of course, we fought terribly growing up, but now we like each other.
About your own identity.
Yes. And then I have my younger sister, Marie. She lives in Bellport. And we see each other all the time.
So you're the big sister?
I'm the oldest. It's a dubious honor. They love to introduce me as the oldest.
Do they? How do you think that your birth order may have determined who you are today?
Well, they would say I'm the bossiest, but somebody has to do it.
Okay. Is there one thing that you could point to that you say you learned from each of your sisters? Is there one thing that you have seen that Tony has either modeled for you or that you...
Well, my sisters are both great. They're both great. They're wonderful people. We especially I would say as we grew up and we go, you have children. I have 2 children, a boy and a girl, and each one of my sisters has 2 children, a boy and a girl, which is kind of interesting. And we've always helped each other out.
Chris, besides your adult influences, were there any other adults that played an important role in your formative years? People who influenced you greatly as you were growing up?
Well, there were some people who were very helpful to me, certainly. Teachers that I had in Brentwood School District were very helpful to me.
Can you think of one in particular?
Well, there was one teacher that I when I was in high school, I had him. His name was Mr. Warner. He was a social studies teacher.
Jack Warner.
Jack Warner, yes. I think his name was Jack. I didn't,
Okay.
I don't know. But he was so much fun. And he would write notes to me on my, anything I handed in. He used to call me Madam President because I was always arguing that, how come I couldn't understand why there hadn't been a woman president. Still can't understand that. And he was great. He was great. And even when I moved to Brentwood, now I was 10 years old, and I had only gone to Catholic school. That year in 5th grade, we were going to move, so I didn't go to Catholic school anymore. I went to public school, and for some reason in that year, there was like 3 different teachers. Can't remember what it was. What the heck did I know? But when I came to Brentwood, I was in Mr. Itzkoff's class in Northeast, because North hadn't been built yet. So, and he was very kind to me, I remember, because I had missed the entire fraction unit, and he used to call me up in the back and try to drill it into my head, And then the next year I had Mr. Black, Charlie Black, for a 6th grade teacher. And later on, many years later, he was my first principal as a teacher. I taught my first year of teaching, I taught in Northeast Elementary School.
Chris, who was the strongest influence in determining what career path you took? How come you became a teacher?
Well, I remember sitting in class quite a few times. If I had a really great teacher, I thought, I think I could do that. It looks like fun. If I had a teacher that I didn't think was too good, I used to be sitting there saying, I think I could do that better. So it just seemed like something that
When did it first click? When did you know that this is where you were headed?
Well, I had in my, my mother never really encouraged us to do, to go to college and things like that. That just wasn't something that, anyone had ever done. And when I said that I wanted to be a teacher, first thing was, well, how are you going to get to college? How are you going to do this? And I couldn't make up my mind. Did I want to be a teacher or did I want to be a nurse? And both of those things, I mean, now typically when you say those two things, they're very, female-oriented professions. And it wasn't like I was saying that I wanted to be an engineer or something. It wasn't something that would have come up either, because, being a girl, I don't know what it was, because I started going to school, and I went semester by semester because I didn't really have the money to, project ahead. So I would do one semester and I would get through that, and then I would do another semester and I would get through that. And in the background, of course, Ralph was in my ear. He wanted to get married, and for some reason I just absolutely refused to get married or do anything until I graduated from college. I don't know. I just had to do it. Yeah, had to do it. Right.
Do you remember your first paying job?
Yes. Yeah. Well, aside from babysitting,
Okay.
I babysat all over Van Buren Street. I was 50 cents an hour, $5. I'd stay the whole night. I mean, what kind of a deal was that? I was at the dentist, and the dentist was talking about he just opened a dry cleaner on I think it was Route 111, and he needed a girl to work in there. So that's what I did. I worked in the dry cleaner for a little bit. Yeah, and then I worked in Hill's Supermarket. I worked in Klein's department store.
Dealing with the public all the time.
Yeah, I guess so. Sure. And then I worked, I got a job through the work-study program in college in the Bayshore Library. And it wasn't where it is now. That actually, I think while I was there, about 6 months after I started working there, I worked for the children's librarian, and they moved over to where it is now. I worked for a librarian. Her name was Delia McDonough, and she was wonderful. She was very, very helpful to me. She when she found out that I was going to be a teacher, and she used to let me take the preschool hour, and she was very encouraging.
I have a different kind of a question to ask. What's the most difficult thing that you've ever had to do?
I guess the most difficult thing that I've ever had to do is really a job as a parent. I think it's the most difficult job that you could ever have to do. Because even though you love your child as much as anything, you can't even imagine until you have a child. You never know if you're doing the right thing. But luckily, I did very well. I did. My kids are great. And they're, if they weren't my children, I would still like them. I think that's a good clue.
Sure.
I would like them and I would want to know them.
As you were growing up, was there one family holiday that really was the biggest holiday?
Oh, Christmas. Had to be Christmas. Yeah, we always had a great time.
What were your interests as a little girl? What did you like to do?
Well, we used to play. Play. We used to play out in my backyard. We would make, whole lands. We would have one time it might be a desert island. We were always building scenarios. That of course, as my sister Tony would say, that of course you'd have to be the boss of.
When you were in college and in your early adult life, were you a night person or a morning person? Has that changed now that you are?
No, I never was much of a night person. I was very cheap date. Like one drink, 2 drinks, that's it. Can't finish my dinner, gotta go.
Did you have favorite toys? when you were playing?
Yes, sure. I had
What were
some
your favorite
special
toys?
dolls. Yeah, sure. You know, we didn't have a lot of things the way they had now, but we always had toys and books and actually my most favorite toy when I was growing up was my sister Marie because now, I was 8 years old when she was born, and I think about what the kids know now. I mean, I didn't even know my mother was pregnant. She was like 6 months pregnant before I was so clueless, right? Um, and when she brought Marie home, it was like, the way the kids act like for the cabbage patch. I thought my mother brought her home for me, for me. She was like, I just thought she was like the best thing going. And I can remember, um, I was like on my hands and knees begging my mother, would she please let me get up to give her the 6 o'clock bottle before I went to school? And, I guess my mother thought I was too young, but I was insistent. And finally, my mother said, okay, sure. So I would get up before school. This is like so ridiculous now when I think about it. And give her her 6 o'clock bottle, change her. I just thought it was great.
Do you have a favorite season of the year?
I always loved summer. I think you can't lose your enthusiasm for summer and be a teacher. It's like, whoa. Just when you think you're going out of your mind as a student or a teacher, summer comes. And there you go. And one year, I remember after my son was born, Madeline Matucci talked me into splitting a Head Start with her. So she did 3 weeks of Head Start, and I did 3 weeks of Head Start. My son was a baby at the time. We needed money. We didn't have that much money, and I did it. And the last day I came home, I crawled home from there. And I told Revis, look, if I ever need to work in the summer again, I will work in Macy's and get a 10% discount before I went to that. So I really love to have my summers off.
What schools did you attend? I know you went to Brentwood High School.
Right. I was in Northeast Elementary School. Then there were no junior highs yet. They were just building south. And we went for one, I don't remember if it was a whole year or part of the year, to the village school, which is now the Felicio Center. And it was double session. So I remember it felt like it was midnight when I came home. It was really dark. And then we went there and, of course, to R.O.B.S. Yeah, and nowadays when people say, if I meet somebody that graduated from Brentwood High, I say, oh, I went to Brentwood High too. And they say, well, where did you go? R.O.B.S Sandling. There was no choice then. It was only the R.O.B.S.
When you got out of school and you were prepared to teach, you ended up in Brentwood.
I did.
When did you end up? When did you come and how did you come
Well,
to Brentwood?
what happened was Adelphi had a program that you got your master's by working in certain schools, and it was like you didn't get your full contract. It was a 3/4 contract because what it went to it was almost like a mentoring type program, and you got 12 credits towards your master's. So I actually had the job in Brentwood, before I graduated. I student taught in Fran Graff's kindergarten class, and then and Mr. Graff came to interview me. Would I to no I first I taught in Northeast. The first year I had first grade in Northeast, and I remember I knew nothing. I mean, I didn't know anything at all. I had one little girl. I remember I had all the reading groups. One little girl came up and said, "Do you know you didn't put me in a reading group?" And I was like, "Oh my God!" This poor little thing. I was devastated. And she was so cute. And then I went, and then Mr. Graff came, because I guess they didn't need as many fifth grade teachers, and Madeline Matucci also was teaching first grade in Northeast. So Mr. Graff came over and he interviewed the both of us. And I remember he said to me, he says, "Oh, I know my wife likes you. That doesn't mean I'll like you." Oh, okay. So then I came to
Do you remember a
Hemlock Park.
question he asked you as part of the interview?
Yes. He asked me, did I mind working with different kinds of people, and what I like about teaching, that kind of thing. He was a wonderful person.
What do you remember about the Brentwood that was during those years? What did you enjoy most about it?
Well, I remember that everybody was just, it was like a family, always like a family, especially at Hemlock Park. We really helped each other, and I met a wonderful friend, Ruth Greco. She and I still, she's my best friend, even though she doesn't live near me anymore, moved away. But we helped each other. We always helped each other.
Did you always teach the same grade?
No. I taught every grade from kindergarten through sixth, every single one. I worked for 4 years. I guess in my fourth year, I got pregnant with my son, and I rather foolishly resigned because I was going to, of course, stay home and take care of my child, right? Well, I was only home for a short time, when that wasn't all that pleasing to me. As had a lot, well, I had a lot of energy too, and I had my house was practically in alphabetical order. I had everything done, and I said, "Geez, I think I should go back to work." And of course, at that time, it wasn't that easy to get back in. So I came back as I think that year I came back as a kindergarten. I think it was kindergarten. Yeah, that one was the kindergarten one. Mr. Graff was able to get me back for a split kindergarten between Hemlock Park and Southwest. So I spent my entire, of course, lunchtime going back and forth. And when I didn't know I was going to have that grade until the day before.
Mm-hmm.
So I came into the morning at Hemlock, ran over to Southwest, and there was no room for me. I had 17 or 18 kindergarten kids, and they had no place to put the kids and me. So they put me on the stage, and I taught the whole day. They had some desks there, but I remember there was nothing. There was a piece of chalk, an eraser, a rolling blackboard, and I spent the entire day trying to keep the kids from falling off the stage, right? So I round them all up, get them on the bus, and I remember I went down. I think Helen Miller was the assistant principal then, and I said, this isn't going to work. Something has to be done. I can't stay on the stage then. So they put me. There was two kindergarten classes that they had the door in the middle. So they put half of my children in one class and half of my children in the other class. Bertel Mason was in one, and Mary Gray was in the other class. And two very, very different teachers. And I was the third wheel in that classroom, so to speak. And they basically really just left to us what were we going to do. So the three of us sat down, and we felt it was too disruptive for the children to try to figure out, what was going on. So I basically 3 days a week I taught. I would call all of the children up in different groups for math. So I taught all of the math to the two classes, and 2 other days I would do art projects for all of the children. So that's basically what I did. And in the morning it was my regular class, and then in the afternoon I'd run over and do that. And then I think the next year I taught fifth grade, and then the next year another grade, and the next year another grade. And in, at that time I thought, how can I do this? How can I do all these different things? And then I became the most adaptable person in the world. and um, and it worked out so well in the long run, because I in the beginning of my career would never have ever taught sixth grade, because in the first place, when I first came, especially when I went to Hemlock Park, if I walked down, or even at Northeast, if I walked, without like the class behind me, they thought I was one of the kids. It was, I had to wear heels all the time. It was terrible. So when I finally I was put into the position where I had to teach a fifth grade at Hemlock, and of course I took the job because it was either that or not work, and I just loved it. It was wonderful. And the other sixth grade teachers there, Pat Lupo and John Sullivan and Irene Grant, they were so helpful to me. It was wonderful.
Chris, I want to ask you, obviously you had a job description and you had a class assignment, but you also had a personal purpose for going into the classroom every day. And I'm wondering if you ever either thought about it or articulated to yourself.
Oh, sure.
What's your purpose?
Sure. My purpose, I was there to help those children become lifelong learners. And I really, believe that. And also, I think that the teacher has a responsibility to make the day as comfortable and as interesting as possible. That was always my goal. And no matter how difficult the class was or whatever, every day was a new day.
Okay.
I think really to be a successful teacher and to enjoy your job, you have to have what I call the Pollyanna gene. Everything will be fine. And you can't be holding grudges, and got to keep going.
Were you ever active in the organization? In the PTA?
I was an alternate delegate for a short time. Always, interested.
Was there ever any particular time during your career when you remember something that was going on that involved the organization that you somehow were connected with or you got involved with?
I always just supported them.
Okay.
I mean, the one of the reasons why I think that the Brentwood School District is as solid as it is as far as its teachers are concerned is because we've always had a strong union and one that worked very closely with the school board and the administration. Anthony Felicio was just the best.
When did you know, Chris, that when did you start first to think about retirement? When did it become a reality for you?
I think it kind of snuck up. Yeah.
When was your actual date of retirement then?
It was just 2 years ago. Okay. This is just my second year. Yeah, okay. 2002.
2002.
Right.
And of all the professional accomplishments that you've achieved, what are you most proud of? Is there such a thing when you look back?
I'm proud of being a teacher. I really am. And if I hear people say, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do this. So I decided to become a teacher. That is terribly annoying to me because I'm proud to do my job.
What was your last assignment?
At a second grade.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever see any of the kids that you had?
Well, I live in the area. I live in Islip, so I do see people all the time.
Do you remember what your first year salary was before taxes?
I think that we were making something like $6,000, but I didn't get that because I was only on 3/4 pay. So I was, because of the program that I was in.
Yes.
So I was like $4,000.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
If
And
you-
I had 27 children in the class. I remember they were good, but at
And
the
I'll bet
same
you
time,
worked as
in
hard-
those
I was
days.
going to say, I'll bet you worked as hard the first day in the classroom as you did the last day in the classroom.
Oh yes, oh yes. If you know, anybody who doesn't, if you don't want to work, don't be a teacher. As far as I'm concerned, because it's you know, you're supposed to be working hard. That's what you're there to do.
Chris, why did you retire?
Well, my plan was to stay another 2 years, but actually I have multiple sclerosis. So I retired because at that time I, certainly could have the benefits were included in the buyout package.
Right.
So that's really why I retired. I wasn't really ready to retire. I really wasn't. And I might be almost ready to do something else, soon.
What have you been doing since you retired?
Well, we redid our whole house.
Okay.
That was very busy. My dad hasn't been well, so I've been, assisting and caring for him. But I had to do something because I truly, miss. It's very. After so many years, what do you do? Well, I'm a teacher. What do you do? Well, I'm retired. I don't know. It sounds so. It was very difficult to get used to.
What would you like to do at this point if you had free reign to do whatever you'd like to do?
I might like to work with new teachers. I might enjoy that. It's luckily for me. When I retired, so many of my friends retired at the same time, so we see each other often, and it really hasn't been as terrible as I thought it was going to be because we play mahjong. We have a great time.
Yeah, but there's an adjustment.
There is an adjustment. There is an adjustment, and I do a few things. I give tours down at Bayard Cutting, Arboretum, once in a while, in the spring and the
It sounds like
fall.
You keep in touch with people that you work with.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start giving tours at the Fire Island Lighthouse.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Is there something that gave you the most pleasure, or something that you could point to say, you really enjoyed doing as far as your work was concerned?
Sure, I love to have fun in the classroom.
Okay.
I love to, tell jokes. I did. I enjoyed it.
Your mother was a reader. Did that rub off?
I love to read stories. I still go into Hemlock and read stories to the third graders. Yeah, I love to do that.
What book has affected you in some profound way? I mean, I'm sure many books have, but
I couldn't say just one.
Not one.
I couldn't even say just one. I read all the time. Just finished the Da Vinci Code. I like that. I really enjoyed that.
What do you miss the most?
I actually now that you really, I think that actually reading to the children was always my pleasure, and I read to the children right up to 6th grade. I always read to them before it was fashionable.
Right. Is there something that you would like to have accomplished that you weren't able to do before leaving?
Oh, sure. Don't you wish you could always have reached every single one of those children that that you maybe slipped through and you didn't get to them? And that's one thing that I tell, my children are teachers, and I know so many teachers, that sometimes, even though at the end of the year you may feel as though maybe you didn't get to that one child, that one child may not have just been ready at that particular time, and you just may have had a part in that child's education.
Chris, there's so many things, but we're running short on time, so I wanted to ask you.
I told you I wouldn't have a problem talking.
I wanted to ask you a couple of more things. If you were to work with young people or young teachers coming in, what's a piece of your advice or from your experience that you would want to give to them?
Well, the first thing that I would tell them is to really to trust themselves. If they think something is not the right thing to do, then they should trust themselves and 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 to and to and to start every day new.
Is there anything that you thought we were going to talk about that I haven't asked you, or is there anything that you would like to say by way of concluding remarks before we finish?
Oh, this has been my pleasure to be part of the Brentwood School District, both as a student and as a teacher.